Well, hello and welcome. It is now 1 p.m. Eastern Time and time to get started with today's Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. Although I've been told today will be mostly a Q&A webcast with not so much of a demo. Well, if you do want to see something demoed, by all means, type it into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So hello, my name is Dave McCormick. I'm VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, our lead solutions engineer here at Alpha. And here, today, Dion will be here to take your questions. So go ahead and type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Dion, are you there?
Yes, sir. Am I coming through okay?
You sure are. I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter so we can see your screen.
You got it? All right. Hopefully
And
that's
so
not
far,
too jarring for everybody. Still a little early in the day for people on the West Coast.
So we don't have a lot of questions. This might be the shortest Q&A session ever, maybe.
I challenge you.
But we do have one question. So why don't we get
Well, I've got some announcements, some other things I'd like to walk through first.
Why don't we do that first? Perfect.
It's technically, it's technically not a demo, but we want to keep everybody posted what's going on. The Oompa Loompas and the Alpha development team are very busy at work, and it's like the Willy Wonka factory up there in Boston. Stuff coming off the line literally almost every day. And joining us, by the way, everybody, is our wonderful, fabulous, amazing Sarah, who is doing just a great job on documentation, and people really enjoy that. So thank you so much for joining us. As Dave, we always love your questions. You can always send those questions in ahead of time at guides. That's G-U-I-D-E. Is it guides, or it's plural, right? It's been a while.
Guides, yeah, it is with an S at the end.
S at alphasoftware.com, and that helps us. Yeah, so you can always send them ahead of time. We'd love when that happens. Obviously here, go ahead and go to your GoToWebinar control panel and help us help you by putting in those questions. We love them. And what's really amazing to me is that what I've found in the past is that someone will ask a question and we'll get these responses from 2 or 3 other people saying, man, that is so great. I didn't know that existed, or that gave me an idea, or it solved another problem I had. So really your questions not only help yourself, but help other developers, because it really expands their understanding of what we can do with Alpha. And so we really appreciate the people who do ask questions, and the people who don't, we love you, but we'd love you more if you give us questions. So that's the way it goes there. Anyway, Dion McCormick here. I want to go over a couple little quick announcements, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to show you a couple new things that have come down the pipe that I think are very, very nice enhancements and very, very powerful. First, as we've talked about, DevCon 2018 in Orlando, Florida, coming up very soon. I mean, my kids are getting out of school in about a week and a half, so we're already into summer. And then I'll tell you, October is going to be right around the corner. So we still have seats available. You can go to the Alpha Software website and register there. You can also see the updated information in the venue and everything else. And we're really excited about our new special session, and really excited about the environment. It's going to be just a fabulous environment. I've already booked my tickets. They were dirt cheap because it's Orlando. And so you'll find that the costs of attending Alpha DevCon are very, very reasonable, just because the cost of getting to Orlando, the location, everything is very aggressively priced. So we really want to see as many people as possible with us at DevCon. You will get an enormous amount out of it, both personally and also professionally, meeting other people. So we are excited about seeing there, having more people to join us. The other question is, we are still looking for mentors and people we want to help out. We're just seeing a dramatic uptake in our professional services group, and in requests for other people who need mentoring. And so that demand keeps increasing. So we're looking for people help us who can guide our clients through. And we really, if you're interested, you can just go ahead and email at guides@alphasoftware.com. We'll move that along over to Greg, who's the head of the PSG, our professional services group. And again, what we're seeing is incredible activity. I mean, last week, I apologize I wasn't here. I missed everybody. But I was on site at a company in the Dallas area that was bringing on a staff of 6 people, and they needed to be trained on Alpha. So we're talking about that's just one company ramping up all those people there. I'm getting a network. Am I still coming out through okay?
You
Dave?
are.
I just got a little network.
It was a tiny bit garbled, but I believe you came through.
Yeah, so I'll see that. Okay, good. So let us know. You don't have to be Yoda, but Yoda has always appreciated that kind of skill sets, specifically how he talks. We don't have to do that in mentoring, although it's very entertaining when we do that.
Absolutely.
So we'd love to hear from you. So let us know at Guides. A couple other quick announcements. As you know, Transform continues to rapidly mature. First and foremost, there's a new look. I'm not going to. We actually have now Transform Tuesdays, which Dave is performing. So if you really want more deep information about Transform, every Tuesday, and Dave, you can, it's at same time, 1 o'clock Eastern time, correct? Is that, just make
1
sure?
o'clock. If anyone is interested in Transform, which is our mobile data collection application technology, brand new, runs on top of Alpha. We still have some spots for charter members, which is a free program, but that's going to be ending very soon. So if you're still interested, please send an email to tfservice, as in transform service, at alphasoftware.com, and I can get you set up in that program.
Yeah, and do it. It's really an amazing program and well worth it. And, it'll allow you to explore Transform at a deeper level than just kind of hearing us talk about it. And once you start, what's interesting is the more I show Transform to people, they really see how it's now an expanded part of their kit, meaning that Alpha Anywhere can do an enormous amount, web, mobile, etc. But they're also seeing that Transform is like a new weapon in their arsenal, that they're able to do things very quickly and satisfy certain requirements that they thought would take a lot longer or more effort. And with the API and the integration with Alpha, they can say, oh, I can now dovetail that into my existing system, etc. So please join us on that. It's really good. A couple quick notes on that is, first is that we have a new look and feel. It's really coming across really nicely, and Dave, our esteemed colleague here, is driving that. So you're starting to see, just refinements and improvements, and that's going to be a continual process. So we're very excited about that and love the work that Dave is doing. And you'll see as Transform matures, the look and feel and the polish, and also just the workflow is going to get simpler and easier and better as it comes along from there. So very excited about that. There's a couple new controls that are now being developed. I don't know if they're fully deployed yet. Dave can give us there, but one is a timer control where you can start a timer and stop it and that's very powerful for our manufacturing companies, because they do a lot of, yep. Mm-hmm. And they do, what's nice about that is our manufacturing, they do a lot of time and motion studies, and timers are critical to that, to say, hey, let's watch someone doing a task and time that, because it all goes into the efficiency of the operation from there. Now you have image annotation, so you can snap an image and then mark it up right there within it, which is very exciting. And for a lot of our existing clients who are using Transform, they really needed that, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. Barcode scanning, so you can zap a barcode now. A QR code is in the works, but it allows you to zap a QR code. So now you don't have to type in QR codes if you're out on a machinery and getting that information about that machinery. And there's a lot of other things that are going to happen along with the barcode scanning that's in the works, that we'll be talking about that in the near future. And the one I'm extremely excited, and it's kind of a combination of want to give you a heads up, but we're also going to be requesting help, is Zapier. So I'm not sure if people are aware of what Zapier is, but it's a third-party software as a service solution that connects different systems together. So think of it as kind of a connector system. So you go online and you can connect, for instance, MySQL to Google Sheets, or QuickBooks to Google Sheets, or QuickBooks to this or that or that. And it's a point and click kind of exercise. And so for people who want to integrate their systems with other systems, or maybe they've bought 3 or 4 different systems, like they have a website and they want to grab the data from there and then move it into MailChimp for their newsletters, things like that. Well, Alpha has developed, our developers have developed a Zapier integration, meaning that we have the ability for you to open up a Zapier process. And we're going to do a demo on this very soon that shows you how you can, with Zapier, reach into Alpha. When a form is submitted, it will automatically call Zapier, and then Zapier can take that data and then do anything with it. It can take it to any of 1,000 different systems and do some very powerful things. And you can kind of chain these things together. So it's very powerful. Now, this is in development mode. We want to give you a heads up on it. And that's where help us if you can, is that we're looking for people who are interested, who maybe have used Zapier before or just curious about it, is we can provide you, and you can use the Zapier component in Zapier, try it out, see what you like, what you don't like, give us your feedback there, and it helps us through the process of releasing the Zapier piece into production. Dave, do you want to make any comments on that, or?
I would. In fact, next Tuesday,
Yes.
I'm going to be holding a live session in which you can work along. So side by side, you have go to meeting in one section and a web browser in another, and I'm going to take you through the process step by step so you can do it as I'm doing it on your own system and get Zapier integrated with Transform. Doesn't cost anything. It's really cool. It's worth checking out. The session's only 30 minutes, so not a lot of time. So 1 o'clock next Tuesday. If you're interested, please send an email to tfservice, as in transform service, at alphasoftware.com, and I will get you all set up with that. Thanks.
Yeah, and if we don't mind, go to zapier.com, zapier.com, and you can sign up for a free account. So I've got a couple different test fund accounts that I do, but you can sign up for a free account. You'll get, like, after 30 days, it goes to the free level, which has certain limitations. But again, no cost. Do it. And then you'll be set up. And Zapier is really cool. It's amazing what you can do, and the integrations you can put together is just getting amazing. You can see all the different types of stuff. Like, I want to take the data out of Transform and just shove it into a Google Drive. Boom. I want to put it into Dropbox. Boom. You connect to your Dropbox to Transform. This thing allows you to do those kind of things there. Amazing things that you can do within the system. So check it out. And the other thing that's really cool about Zapier, and it depends, they have different pricing levels. I'm not here to sell Zapier, but you can chain things together. So you can say step 1 is this, step 2 is step 3, and then you can look at the different, there's certain, how many times it will do it, how complex, etc. But really cool stuff, and we really appreciate any help you can give on that. So that's our announcements with Transform. Exciting new look. Join us for Transform Tuesdays. Next week, join us to see Zapier in action. And if you can, and we would really appreciate it, is go ahead and help us. Go ahead and we'll walk you through the process of getting in Zapier and write your own. They're really fun, and it's really works great. My testing is going really smooth. It's a very, very solid release. And the new controls, timer, image annotation, and barcode scanner are now available, and more are coming very soon with a lot more functional capabilities. So with that, what I'd like to do is, we do have a couple other quick announcements. So I'm going to go ahead, and if possible, I would like to make our esteemed colleague, the presenter, Sarah. And Sarah's going to just show you a couple cool new things that are coming out in pre-release, and also that have been announced. So should I do that? Let's see, where's Sarah? I gotta make sure I pick the right person. There we go. Hey, I can do it.
All right, excellent.
I know. Okay, Sarah, take it away.
Wait.
I said, take it away.
I muted myself when I heard my name.
What? I have to present something?
I know.
I'm sorry.
Sarah
Okay.
who? Sarah who?
No, I clicked the unmuted button at the same time you said my name, so
Oh,
I didn't
okay,
hear
gotcha.
what you said after that. All right, so I also wanted to show a few things. We're working to make Alpha more usable, user-friendly, and as many of you may already know, when you create at least when you create a new workspace, and let me close out of here real quick before I show you this demo. Oh, well, that just closed Alpha anywhere. Let's start from the beginning here.
Well, that's
By the way,
because Alpha
everybody,
anyway.
that's how you. That is a that is a demonstration of closing and getting out of Alpha. So you got your demo this week.
Yeah, I just click close until it suddenly closes on you. All right, so some things I just wanted to share with you guys that are coming down the line soon is we've been reevaluating like the process of creating workspaces, and one of the things we've done recently is we've simplified that process. So you don't have to go and make a bunch of directories anymore that are named after your workspace. Like, it's all built into our new Create a Workspace dialog, which I think will make it a lot easier for most people to get their project set up properly, that to make sure that your workspace is sandboxed in its own directory and you don't accidentally do the thing that most people end up doing at least once, is making a new workspace in a directory that has another workspace in it already, or in a subdirectory, and then that getting all meshed together weirdly. So this is that new dialog. In addition to this, we also have a clone a workspace feature, which is getting a little bit of a facelift, but does exactly the same thing that it does right now in Alpha Anywhere, which allows you to copy an existing workspace to create a new one. So if you've got a project you've been working on that you would like to tweak a little and maybe give it a facelift or deploy it as a different application, you can actually copy that whole workspace and start from there. So that's a great feature. Great for working with our samples as well. If you want to take a sample but you're not confident about, maybe you're afraid you're going to mess it up, which you can always download it again, but that could be perceived as a hassle for some. So you can definitely copy it using this clone workspace feature and then work from there.
Excellent.
So that's that. The other thing I wanted to share is that we've got some new actions in Action JavaScript for Google Maps, for the Google Map method. I don't know if any of you have ever wanted to display, to calculate, to plot a route or get distance and travel time between objects on your map. But we've added two new ones, one called plot route and one called get distance and travel time between points. And what these two methods allow you to do is very easily, very simply, plot a route on a map with the driving directions without having to call any JavaScript or write that yourself. So here's the demo we've got out there. It's available on our website and in the pre-release notes. It's just a simple list. It's got 4 addresses in it, and then we've got a map control over here, and then this button up here to plot the route. And what that does is it takes all of these addresses in this list, plots them on the map, and then displays the driving directions in a placeholder down here at the bottom. It can be modified. We've got, maybe you want to reorder how these places are visited. Maybe go to this one at the top last. So you can drag it down there. It redoes the whole route. It updates the distance. This demo, which I explained earlier, is available online. Oh, that's transform. Let me find it for you. So if you just go under our documentation and search for Google Map or Google Map method, there's this Google Map method UX component. That's the action JavaScript that does this. And we've got those new methods documented in here. And there's way down at the bottom in here, there's a section with videos and that computing distance time and travel between points. That's where you're going to find that component download.
Very cool. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah. Hey, one other thing, if you go back to the actual web page, I want to show everybody one other neat thing that this demo demonstrates is the drag and drop feature of the list controls. So on the left-hand side of the screen,
with the demo, back in Alpha?
Yeah, if you don't mind real quick.
Not at all. Yeah, it does do that.
Yeah, so you'll see this is a list control, and go ahead and just drag and drop a few of them. Isn't that cool? And so what I find that's really cool about is in the olden days, when I had grids, I would have grids and I would use up and down, like up and down things and rewrite the grid. And then when the list control came out, there was a function that allowed you to add a button that would move things up and down in the list, which worked really well. But now you can give someone a very intuitive way to reorder and sort a list, which is really powerful because they're sometimes saying, this is the order I want something done. And that's called the built-in drag and drop in the list component. And it's a built-in function. It's basically you just set a switch and then you can then handle it. And you also have all the hooks to say, well, after I've moved this, should I do something like trigger an X basic callback or do some other thing to update some data? And again, this is really cool. And what's nice is this actually, it works in touch also, correct? Where you can kind of touch and move them.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I'll have to double check that.
Demo that here because I don't have a touch interface.
Yeah, so anyway, but check that out. It's a really cool feature, and it really makes for intuitive user interfaces for people to be able to reorder things in their apps. And I've seen that in a lot of different apps where you want to be able to say, okay, this is the order to present them in. So pretty cool. Then one other note about the whole Google Maps stuff. I don't know, a lot of people Maps are probably aware of this, but you really need to go to your Google Maps control panel. They've changed how they do it. So right now, up to now, you could go on, get a free API and go to town, and then you hit certain limits, it would stop you. Google switched that around. They say, okay, you get a you have to now sign up officially, give them a credit card, and then you get up to like $200 worth of credit per month, I think it is, towards it, which still gives you a lot of, ability to do things. And they count it by API calls. So like when you make an API call to do that plot route, that's considered an API call. And so they keep track of that stuff. So we just want to give people a heads up that do check with Google and go there and get your account all set up there. Again, it's still free from the standpoint of you got a free credit on it, but it's something to be aware of and to know within the system.
Right. And I do want to say that to the advantage, I think, of a lot of people, because they're no longer, I think previously you had to pay like $10,000 at the lowest entry level.
Exactly.
If you pay for it. Now it's $200 a credit, which means if you go over, maybe you're only paying $50 for your needs as opposed to having to pay $10,000.
Yeah, it was a brutal jump. It was like the cliff, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually I think a big improvement.
Yeah, again, the pricing is very aggressive. I mean, if you were Uber, yeah, it's going to get very expensive for you very, very fast because the sheer number of calls they're making, and hence why they build a lot of their own mapping technology. But for most of our clients and the number of solutions, if you have 100 people out in the field, you're going to start hitting some good API levels, but it's not going to be insane, and for the value you get, it's a pretty good deal. So, but definitely check that out. And this is, thank you, Sarah. As you can see, when you do the reorder, you have an on move in JavaScript. So that means after the person moves the item, it triggers that. And in there, you can actually perform action JavaScript and or write your own code, or like in this case, it's clicking another hidden button or another button on the screen. So every time it does it, it clicks a button, and that button has some thing it's doing, like replotting the route or something like that. But you could also click and create your own action JavaScript to make an AJAX callback after someone reorders something, or modify something else on the screen, or who knows what you can do. It's really open-ended. So check that out. It's a really cool feature in the system. Excellent. Right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate your help on that.
You're welcome.
Well, awesome. boy, do we have questions. Wow, from one to a whole bunch. So let's start. People. Yeah, we do love questions. We'll start right at the very beginning. And this person wants to, actually, this is about starting over. They have an app running on IIS. Maybe it was being used for demo purposes, but now they want to get rid of all of the users in their security system. So again, it's IIS web app, but they want to start again. So what's the best way to just clear out all the users?
Sorry.
Should you build a new table? Should you write a little script?
Okay.
What would you do?
This is very important because we're talking about IIS. And so let's set the stage that IIS and Alpha standalone server, and by de facto IIS and Alpha Cloud work differently. So with Alpha, if I go to here, if you're using the standalone server, these are your 4 tables that hold your security data. And those are the tables that hold that security data, the members, the groups, etc. And so, I mean, literally, you could go in and delete the data directly out of here and they essentially disappear. Although you could also just go into your Alpha environment. And I apologize, I'm jumping around, but let me get to here. Some Alpha 101. You can go to web security and in here and go ahead and edit that information. Since it is a table, what you could do is if you're doing the server, if you have access, you could just set up your connection string that you set up for your web security, point it to the database on the server that holds that data, and then you can use the built-in users and groups to edit, change, modify, and you're basically updating and rewriting the data on that server. So that's method number 1 that you're able to do that. Now, here's the deal. When you're using IIS, it's a different animal. So what happens with IIS is that when you publish, we are using a different set of tables on your database up on the server. And we manipulate that through, it's called a security storage, and it manipulates that data through .NET and through that. So it handles all those kind of things there. So very important for people who are used to these tables. Guess what? When you're on IIS, the data has been extracted from these tables and put into a new table set. And that's why we say never touch the tables if you ever have, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't want to depend on those things being there, because down the road, you might move out. Well, guess what? You don't have access to these tables anymore if you go to Alpha Cloud or stuff. It's just we use a more modern security structure. With that in mind now, though, I'm sorry, I apologize. Let me get back here. There you go. So with that in mind, there are some built-in functions within it. So let me go ahead and go to my profiles. Oh, that's only there. Let me go to my demonstration profile. Okay. And then I'll open up my profiles. And actually, there's a function is that you'll notice that, let's see. Yep. Okay. So this is set up for that. Let's see, okay. I'm trying to find my management service URL. Okay, let me open up a different one here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the setup there with the proper way. Okay, go into my profiles, go to Alpha Cloud, and then we go here and you'll see publishing settings. We'll go in, oh, that's Alpha Cloud, I'm sorry. Similar there, I wanna go to IIS. I apologize on that. Let me get the right one out here. Okay, while I'm doing that, let me go back to here and go into my publishing profiles. In your publishing profiles, there we go. Okay, you can specify when you're there. So let me go ahead and go to publish. I'll go to my IIS one here, and you can, where do we do that? You can set in here what you want to do with the data on the server. I don't have it hooked up on my other one here. Man, this is a bad demo. I'm sorry on there. But in your publishing profile, you can say the following. You can say, I want to preserve what's on the server. So therefore, what it will do is it will leave all the security data up on the server alone. You can say, for instance, I want to merge my roles data. So it will take and it will merge if I've added a new role, you can do that. But also there's replace, where I can literally say, take the security information, my users and groups on my local machine, and overwrite it on the server. And I apologize, I'm not finding that in this one here. Where is that one? Yeah, because these are always using, I don't have security set up on that. That's why it's going on here. So I can try and find a better example of that. But anyway, it allows you to publish that security information up on the server. And so that's during the publishing process. Is you in your publishing profile, when security is enabled for IIS, you'll see there's a selection to say, do I want to preserve? Do I want to overwrite? Do I want to merge? How do I want to do those things there? And so that's how you would manipulate the data in the IIS on the server to say, reset it to a couple users and a default set of groups that you're starting over with. And what will happen is during the publishing process, Alpha will talk to that security database up there, the security store, and delete the items and add the items and do everything else to get it ready for you so that you're ready to go. So again, in summary, and I apologize that it wasn't a slip here, is in your publishing profile, when you have security enabled, there will be a drop down that will allow you to select what you want to do during the publishing process to either overwrite, update, or merge data. And you can do that with using that solution. So the real key thing I want to make sure is when people go from standalone, it's all in these 4 tables. When you're up on IIS, there's a whole bunch of tables that's handled differently. So you want to use that publish process to do any kind of cleanup or changes that are needed. I hope that's sufficient for your question.
Gotcha. And if we didn't answer it fully, by all means, send in an email to guides@alphasoftware.com and we'll look at it a little bit further. But thanks very much.
Thank you.
Here is another publishing question, and this has to do with cloud publishing. And the question is, and I'm guessing what they're trying to do is allow their application to access a database that is not in the cloud or is on a different cloud. And so the question is as follows. Under the Web Projects Control Panel, the Alpha Cloud status, are the IPs that are listed, are those the IPs that the app is running on in the cloud? And can you basically create the holes in your firewall or the exceptions in your firewall based on those IP addresses?
And the answer is absolutely correct. Is that, and I'm trying to think how I get access. Is that in the View Cloud, or is that, oh man, I was just looking at this yesterday. Bottom line is the answer is yes. So basically what you're going to find out with Alpha Cloud is that there are actually 3 IP addresses that are associated with Alpha Cloud. And the reason for that is for just sheer volume of traffic and everything else. We need 3 IP addresses that are available. So what you'll do is on that status, you're going to find those 3 IP addresses. Then you need to make sure on your database environment that those 3 IP addresses are whitelisted on your database server. So when we're using, for instance, Amazon RDS, in Amazon RDS, in the security aspect, you can say, okay, these 3 IP addresses are, you can connect you can connect to the database using any of these 3 IP addresses. So therefore, when the database is sitting there, it's looking at the incoming IPs and it's saying, well, if you're not on my list, you can't get in. Sort of like the velvet rope with the guy with the clipboard. So what you would need to do is get those 3 IP addresses from Alpha Cloud, and then you go to your RDS or wherever, and you make sure that that database whitelists those IP addresses. Now, when Alpha Cloud, when your app running on Alpha Cloud says, I need database, it knows that URL of your database, the server location. When that request comes out, it's going to go through one of those 3 IP addresses. So when your database receives the request, it's going to say, oh, I'm getting a request. It's from this IP address. Oh, they're whitelisted. Go ahead and let it through. And then the database will process it there. So the answer is you're right in terms of that process. You have to get those 3 IP addresses. Make sure you get all 3, because if you get like 2 of them out of the 3, you may have every once in a while where Alpha Cloud reaches out through that 3rd IP address, and if you don't have it whitelisted, all of a sudden it fails. So you want to make sure you have 3 IP addresses whitelisted for Alpha Cloud on your database environment.
That's great. And that was actually the second part of the question is, when I see the IPs, which one do I use, or do I use all of them? And it sounds like you should use all 3 of them when you're setting up your firewall.
Use all 3. And so if like you're at RDS, if you're like with ZebraHost, they'll it's a good policy to protect your database and say only certain things, just from a data storage security, if you can limit traffic to certain IP addresses, that things aren't, random people aren't able to go access and try and break into your database. So it's a good policy. And then, you can, each of the systems like Amazon RDS, there's a certain way you do it there, or places like ZebraHost, they'll help you set that up so you can whitelist those properly. But you need all 3 of them, and make sure all 3 of them are good, because if you miss one, then you could get strange things where all of a sudden for some reasons it doesn't connect to the database. Like every once in a while, you're like, well, why? And it could be because of that whitelist issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And intermittent problems are such a pain to hunt down.
Oh man, they're a nightmare. They're a nightmare to do that.
Great. We have a bunch more questions here, but please keep them coming by all means. Just a quick answer to this one. And the question is, will Zapier only work with Transform? And currently we only have an integration right now between Transform and Zapier. We're looking at an Alpha Anywhere integration with Transform. So if you have any ideas as to how you think that might work for you, by all means, send them into guides@alphasoftware.com, and we'll evaluate it and maybe add it right into the product. So.
Yeah, but just to let you know, if you're interested, you don't have to wait for that, by the way, is look up, okay, what you can do is Zapier has something called a webhook. And basically, the idea behind it is they have a pre-made hook, sort of like a generic listener is the way to think about it. So the idea is you set up this thing called a webhook, and then in Alpha, you just submit, basically using the built-in XBasic, you can submit data to that webhook, because this is just a URL, and you're passing that URL some data, and this is usually some JSON kind of scenario. And then once you've set that up, then you can use that generic webhook thing to connect to anything, so it's really powerful, the webhook concept inside Zapier. So you don't have to have a dedicated alpha Zapier thing. The benefit with Transform is that we've already done a lot of the work, so it's point and click. This takes a little bit more effort to do, but it's not much, and an hour of work and you'll have it up and running fine. But I've used them and they're really cool, where you can just say, hey, alpha anywhere, call this webhook. So you give it you use a URL and you pass it some JSON, and then that within there takes it and moves it to Google Sheets or something else. And I've done things like that. And so check out Zapier if you want to try and start working on it immediately without having to wait for us. And they're really not that hard to put together. You walk through, they have examples and demos, and you'll be good to go. And it works really well. It's very cool, because once you have that data here, then you can just say, okay, I want to take that data and move it into any other system, and it just works. So you can see that just the sheer amount of things that you can do. And vice versa, you can set up Zapier that will call a URL on your server and pass it some JSON. So you can do the opposite, where you can have Zapier taking information like from maybe when someone submitted something in MailChimp or something else, it can actually be calling your alpha server and sending you data, and then you just have a A5W web page that allows you to process that incoming data. And now with the new Alpha API, you can actually create a web API on using Alpha, using a XBasic class that is going to sit there and listen. And so you can use Transform to call your web API that you built with Alpha, and then that data can then be put into your regular system. So there's no limit to start using that with Alpha Anywhere at this time. And again, we plan on doing more demos of this to actually show you how to in the very near future, but a lot of the documentation is online, and we'll be doing that.
Right. And again, if you want a crash course on just an easy use of Zapier, then send an email to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. We'll get you set up for Tuesday's webinar, where we'll go through it live and you will follow along with your own Zapier account. So here's kind of a cool question. This person is getting a response back from a web service, and it's in XML format. And the question is, how do I parse out a specific element from XML? And you know what? He was even nice enough to paste an example right into the questions box. So maybe we can use his example. If you want to scroll down to the, can I use alpha? Or if you like, I can paste it into the chat.
Oh, it's in the questions. There you go. I was looking in there. Okay. Can you paste that in the chat?
Yeah, I'd be happy to put it in chat. Absolutely.
Where is that?
So chat.
Okay, so first, I'm going to go to documentation. Excellent. And XML. And what's really cool is Alpha has built-in XML functions that will actually take XML and turn it into what's called a property. So let's go. I can't guarantee this is going to work, so we're going to try this. So
let's try it live in front of all these people.
Live,
it'll be fine.
There.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, this is the flying Walindas. We do not have a net at this point in time. It's like, I need that drum. Yeah. So okay. So I'm going to go ahead and for people who are new for Alpha, again, XBasic is our built-in language. And you use it to create scripts and other things like that. So I'm in Alpha Anywhere right now. I'm in the Web Projects Control Panel, which is where you spend most of your time doing grids and forms and things like that. But I'm going to click down here on the Control Panel, which is going to take me into what's called the Legacy Control Panel. This is when it was a desktop app. But there's a neat tab here called Code, where I can write little scripts and test them. So as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of other little scripts, like here's this example script to do it, upload to S3. So I use it kind of as my little playground sandbox. And then once I have it working, I definitely put all of my code into XBasic classes, because that's where they need to go for many reasons, which I won't go into now. But this is a great place just to write little scripts. So I'm going to go ahead and click New here, and I'm going to create a new script, and I'm going to save this script, and I'm going to call it XML parser. Okay. So now this is a script, so I can go like, dim string as our name as C, name is equal to Dave, and then I can go show var name. So basically I'm just writing a little program, a little script here, and then I can run it in here by just clicking this little lightning bolt. And you'll notice this show var is a built-in function that will pop up and show me the value of that variable, which is Dave. So the idea is just a little script editor from that standpoint here. So let's go ahead and go XML text as C because it's there. And then I'm going to go XML test, our text is equal to, and here's a little trick, and I'll explain that in a moment. So I'm just pasting in that XML right here into a variable. This is a little trick. It says this is the start of a string, and then that way you can put in like returns and everything else. And here is the end of your string here. So you'll notice all in gray because it's treating everything from the beginning to there. That way I don't have to sit there and go like this plus this row, etc. from there. Now I'm going to use one of our built-in commands. And so I'm going to go dim output property as P. And that's a pointer variable, so think of it as a little array. And again, I know for people, bear with us, this is a little more geeky coding kind of stuff. But I have this great thing in here that says property from XML. And so basically you can go here, and in fact, I'm going to click this button right here. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it into the chat window right here. And that's a link right from here. And it explains how it works. Is basically it takes XML, and in this XML could come from, like, notice this HTTP get page. This basically says call a web page and grab that data and put it into my variable. That's how easy this is here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the property from XML. And I'm going to go back into my development environment. I'm going to go property, and this is going to be XML. So it's looking for my incoming XML. So that's my XML text that I created. And then the second thing it's looking for is where I'm going to put it, which is in my output property, okay? And now, so what's going to happen is that I'm taking this text, I'm going to give it to this function. It's going to take the text and give me back what's called a property array. And so then I'm just going to do this test is equal to test plus 1 and debug. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, just so we can check how this works, and actually, oh, you know what? Let's do this. Let's try this. We'll just go show var output property. Okay, and good. So I'll save this script. Nice thing is I can always come back and play with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that text, I'm going to put it in the property, and let's go ahead and see what it looks like and see if it works. And there's something in there, but it's not showing right. But so let's go ahead and do this. Try this. And we'll see if it interpreted the XML okay. So let's go ahead and look at output property. And there it is. Check that out. So, okay, and so this is a little deep, but what think of a property is, you'll notice that it has, so like for instance, output property dot distance matrix response dot row. So property has this, the top level in there. So I can just dig in until I get down to this distance. And for instance, to read, so let me go up here. See this value here, this distance value right here? This is how I read that. It's basically converted it from a bunch of text into what's called a property. And so I can grab this anymore and I can copy this out, okay? And now I can stop my debugger. And I'm going to go ahead and change this. I'm going to say show var distance plus, and that, oops, oh, it copied the value. Let me go do that first. Sorry, I'm going to one more time and I'll wrap it up here. So I want to copy, not this, copy the variable name. And so that's all good. So I'm going to go here plus that. So, and then let's run it and run it. So you'll notice now that I've grabbed that distance value out of this XML, and then I can grab that for anything that's in that XML. So you'll see in here that basically it took this XML text, and this XML is like hierarchical data. You'll notice duration, value, and text, a distance, value, and text. Now it's output property, distance matrix this. And this is going to be a little weird because it's just trying to grab that XML and use its own language in there. And so you'll see this kind of thing here. But Alpha does all that. So the way you do it is, and the way just to figure out is go ahead and do this convert and then put a debug in, and then you can just inspect this output property. And I can go in here and I can look at all the different elements of it, like for instance, origin address. That's how I get the origin address. And so you can kind of use the debugger to kind of figure out, well, how did Alpha translate it into something I can use? And the nice thing is it's every time you feed it this same kind of XML, you're always going to get this result out so you can reliably create a script. So thank you for people for patience for who aren't as interested in the coding stuff, but that's how you would do that program right there. Is basically you would use the built-in command that would take XML and turn it into a property, and then with that property you could then inspect it with they're in there. And by the way, there's a similar one for JSON, so you can take a JSON that comes back from a service and turn it into a property and then refer it to and do the same exact thing with whether it's XML or JSON.
Very cool. Thank you very much.
Great question. Yeah.
So while you're here, the
Yes.
function you're using, property from XML, someone pointed out, hey, that's a property that starts with an asterisk.
Yes.
Why do some of our things start with asterisks and some not? I don't know if you know that. Maybe Sarah knows the answer to that question.
It's historical. That's a really old one, and that was in the desktop days. So I think it has to do with it's an immediate, like for instance, I'm not going result is equal that. It, I think it does return a true or false if it's successful. But
it's one of the ones
really
where you give it the variable as part of the argument.
But that would be, I'd have to ask the developers why they have certain, because there's a great one that I use all the time called star any, and you can go like A comma B comma C comma D, and you can go for instance A, and if I run that, this would say true because the letter A was found somewhere inside this string. And that one I use a lot. It's called star any. But if I did E, then it returns false because that E is not present inside here. And that's just, it's been around for a long time, but that uses star nomenclature also.
Yeah, no, the star isn't really anything special. It's just the older functions had a star on them to avoid colliding with any user-defined functions when they added them.
Ah, gotcha.
Oh, there we go.
And
Cool.
there you go. See, you have to ask the smart person these questions, not me.
That's the documentation.
That's much.
Yes.
No, the smarter person. It's like, don't waste time with me. I'll just jabber away,
So, moving on. So I have another question here, and this one has to do, it's a pretty straightforward one. And it is it possible to get Alpha Anywhere to work with an encrypted database such as MariaDB? And is there anything special you need to do?
Well, two things. One is that Alpha, by default, when you create a connection string, you can set up, oh, see, that's an access, so you can't really do it there. Let's go to this one, edit that one, and build it. We support TLS and SSL. So first, and it's part of this question, is that what TLS SSL means that Alpha will encrypt the request to the database, and then the database will encrypt it and send it back to us, and then we'll decrypt it here. So you have to set that up. But the beauty of it is, let's say you had Alpha Cloud, and then you had the database on site. Alpha Cloud could talk to that database, and all the traffic between the two would be encrypted. And you don't have to use Alpha Cloud. You could do it on your own. And there's a little overhead because it's doing the encryption and decryption, but it's very slight, and it's all built into the fabric so you can protect yourself. Now, the other aspect is that if you're putting encrypted data inside your database, you can use Alpha's encryption functions to do that. We have that ability. There's no automatic decryption of data that's in the database. Like if I read a row and the third column is a social security number and it's encrypted, I somehow have to handle that myself. We can't say, oh, third row is encrypted and here's the key. That just is, it's too different from all the different databases, how they handle stuff like that. But you can use Alpha's built-in encryption tools and encryption scripts to be able to grab that. So let's go encryption. And you'll see that we have a lot of encryption functions built into the system that will allow you to, for instance, decrypt a string or encrypt a string. And so you could, before you save it, you encrypt it and then let Alpha write it to that table. And then when it comes back out, when you load it up, you decrypt it and show it to the user. So that's very, very handy from there. Quick thing to note, and I've seen people try this. In our web security users, there is a password called that is encrypted by the security system. Don't try to use decrypt string to use that. It won't work. When Alpha writes this password and reads this password through our security framework, it does a double secret methodology so that you can't easily, there's an extra layer of protection for you. So you can't use, sorry, let me go back here. You can't
just simply use our built-in function.
You can't just use this decrypt string and then do it, because we use a different method for encryption of that. But that said, you can use the encrypt string and decrypt string with the same key to encrypt something, put it in the database, and then when it comes back, and that key would then be built into your application, and no one else, so you'd have that level of protection. So I hope that's kind of answered it a little bit there, but that's kind of how first level is that we'll use TLS and SL to encrypt data between Alpha server and the database. That is all handled when you set up that connection string. And then the second level is the actual data inside the database. You can use these tools to do that.
Excellent. Now another database question, and this person wants to have a UX, but the UX presumably will have a list, or maybe it'll have it will have a list that'll join 6 different tables together. The question is, does that have to be done at the database level, or can you specify in the UX how you would like to have that joined, or how would you go about doing that if you have a
it's your choice
structure?
There. Okay. The only question I have is that join, is that editable? Because that's going to be dependent on the database. So something of that complexity, to be honest, I usually do it in the database, because then I have it at one location. I can create a view, and in that view, for instance, here's a view I've created here that does a quick join in the database of category, name, and count, and does a little sub. So this is actually a very powerful environment to write those scripts, because the modern database, this is Navicat, but there's DB Forge, there's Heidi SQL, there's SQL Yoga, there's a whole bunch of them. They're really powerful there. That said, though, I'm going to go ahead and just use a grid component right here. So I'm going to create the grid, and I'm going to go into my query, and I'm going to select my connection, connect there. You'll notice I could select a table, or I could create a SQL select statement. So let me go ahead. I've selected that. I could just paste it right in there, or I could edit in here. And so, for instance, I could say add table. Let's say it's customer. Okay. And then I can add another table, and this is going to be orders. And it's telling me, oh, guess what? Are they, what's their relationship? So the linking field is the ID in the customer table and the customer ID in the order table. And then you can define the type of join, inner, left, right, etc. And then now I am building my SQL right inside Alpha. I could execute that query, and you'll see here's my query running right in here. So you can use either method, whatever you're more comfortable with. The only thing I'd say is that if you're going to reuse this in 2 spots inside your application, it's nicer to have it like in the database as a view or something like that, because then if you ever need to change it, you change it in one place, and then your grids and whoever references it inside Alpha is there. But that said, you're more than welcome to use this methodology, and it works great. So now I click OK. I've created there. I can select my primary key. Well, it's already selected for that point. Now I go to my fields, and you'll notice in my fields, I have my customer data here, and down here I have, for instance, my order data. And I can just build this grid, and it's going to run that query, and here's my customer data and my order stuff all in the same grid, done. And the way I did that again is I used SQL select statement. I could either paste it right in there, build it myself, or use the SQL query builder to build that, that view from there. So really up to you in terms of how you would like to do it. And you can see inside this query builder, you can set up filters, you can set ordering requirements, and it handles all the different, items here, etc. How you want to handle it from there.
Great. Now you showed us the SQL Query Genie inside the grid builder, but can you show us how you would do that same thing in a UX? Let's say you're doing a list control.
Sure. So I'll go Web, I'll go to UX, and then I'll just use a blank one here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over here to data binding, and I'm going to say bind the controls to one or more existing tables. Brings up this. I add my table. So, I have to select first my connection string down here at the left. Okay. Now that I've done that, I can add a table. And let's say customer. Okay. Then I can add a table here, which is my order. And there you go. Now I have that. I can do the parent linking fields. So it's a little different nuance here. But for instance, with the customer, the order, the parent link field is ID, and the field in this table is the customer ID, and in the parent table. But now that I've got that, I've now got a, okay, no problem. Okay, so you'll notice now it's showing me my connection from customer to order. So now in here, I can add a field in here, and I'm going to go ahead and add a customer name. And in there, I can set that customer name. I'm going to go down here to say, okay, they're in the customer table, and this is the customer name there. So I can set that up. Now, normally what I do is to make my life easier, I don't necessarily put both tables in here. I'll like do a parent UX with a grid or something like that. But if you do this method here, you want to put in what's called a is it a type of container? Yeah. Okay. So the idea is, here's my customer name, and so it would show my customer name here. But now what I want to do is I want to add the fields for my order. So I'm going to go ahead and add my fields for the order. So let's see, what are the fields in order here? Order. I see, just get two fields. Let's say employee ID and ship name. Oops, so I'll go back here. So I'll add my fields here, employee ID and ship name. Now here comes the trick. Okay, so I've got those two, but there's a one-to-many relationship. This customer is going to have multiple, so I need to highlight those, put in a container, and the type of container I want is called a repeating section. Okay, now I've set up that repeating section. What will happen is I can link this employee ID to the order table, and what will happen is it will repeat these controls over and over on there. And I don't have it fully operating. It's not loading the initial one here, but you'll notice I've got multiple items here. And if I were connected and set up properly, I'm not here, it would load up the customer, and then it would load up those associated in there. And then I have the ability to add new rows, delete rows, and things like that. And there's great videos online. If you go to here to the alpha development or documentation and go to repeating section, okay, and this will explain, these are the different things, but you can repeating section, that's for properties. Let's go back. Here you go. This will show you exactly how to do that. So I'm going to copy this. So I guess I should have just sent this out right after they asked the question. And so you can see, which it shows you, alpha, what's really good is that, and the documentation is very clear, talking about the concepts, what the controls are, how to set them up, everything. So check that out. I'll go back in here and do this, and go here and put it into the chat window. And oh, did I click the right thing? I think I did. Good. So that's how you do it. So the similar concept between alpha is that in the data binding, in the query for the grid, in the data binding for the UX, you bind it, you set up your relationship between the parent child. and then in here you use the repeating section to be able to show those multiple child items inside of UX, and it's fully editable, changeable. You can add new records. It obeys the parent-child relationship, so when you create new records, they're going to insert them with the right ID, etc., and it's really handy from there. So I hope that's helpful.
Excellent. Thanks very much. One quick question, either for you or for Sarah, and it has to do with cloning workspaces. And the question is, does cloning a workspace allow you to specify a new or at least a different backup folder?
It actually, yes, is that when you clone a workspace, it's going to actually have a backup folder in it. So I'm going to go to, so let's go to here's my demonstration in here. I'm going to go into my web projects and go to my default web project here. Where's default? Right there. And you'll see that we have a backup right here. So in here are all those saved versions of my thing, and I think it carries them over. We'd have to double check on that. I'm not sure, but if you wanted to get rid of those backups, you could just go in here and delete them and they'll be gone from that standpoint. Or within the tool, you can actually go here and go to clean up component backups in here, and that will delete your component backups. So you have kind of, because that folder gets really big over time, because every time you save a component or grid, it saves a copy of it in there. So that can get pretty large over time. So you want to clean that up either like after you've cloned the project, I would go in and delete those backups if you don't need them, because you're starting with like a fresh starting point. And by the way, your previous project will still have those backups still available. So I hope that answered the question.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have run out of time. Dion, thank you very much for presenting. Sarah, thank you for presenting. And thanks to all of you for asking such great questions today. If you do have further questions or questions that we did not get to, please send them to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, @alphasoftware.com. If you're interested in joining our Transform program, which will be ending pretty soon, but you can still sign up, send an email to TF, as in Transform, tfservice@alphasoftware.com. Today's session was recorded, and you'll be able to find a copy of the recording at videos.alphasoftware.com in about 2 days. Thanks again for attending. Hope to see you next Wednesday. Actually, hope to see you next Tuesday as well. Take care and goodbye.